Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming. My name is Kathy Wright, and I am Boost Manager of Strategic Contracting and Procurement. Welcome to the third presentation in our four-part OASIS Plus series, Introduction to OASIS Plus. Our presenter for today is Bree Paramo. Bree is a GSA schedule consultant with Boost and helps our clients with all things GSA and GWAX. She is adept at obtaining GSA schedules, changing those schedules when needed to add sends or otherwise modify them, and helps our clients with the multitude of reporting requirements under these contract types. The presentation portion of today's event will last around 30 to 45 minutes, and we will conclude with a question and answer session for the last 15 minutes. Please use the Zoom questions feature to send me your questions as they come up, and I'll pass them to Bree at the end. At the end of the series, we will make all four presentations available through Boost's website. We know you will enjoy her presentation. So Bree, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm excited to present this information. And as she said, I am the GSA schedule consultant with Boost. And I'm excited to present recommendation and advising on reporting and deliverable compliance for you to be successful in managing your OASIS Plus contract. So let's start. So let's talk about the objectives of this presentation. The very first one is understanding the contract requirements. As we know, the government contracts have requirements based on individual task orders and at the master contract levels. And also we will understand the sales reporting aspect, how to effectively submit your transactional data reporting that is required under this contract. We will also understand the key reporting differences from our previous legacy contract OASIS and now in comparison to this OASIS Plus contract, and we will provide some recommendations for you to be successful in knowing the differences and applying those differences in managing this contract. The last one is to follow best practices and recommendations for reporting compliance, as well as tips on how to manage the system and complete additional reporting at the master contract level. Thank you, Kathy. Please, next slide. So let's talk about now the reporting and key deliverables at the master contract level. These deliverables that we will discuss right now apply as a standard to all government contracts, not only the OASIS Plus contract, but these are required under this contract specifically, and we need to ensure that we also pay attention to the ones based on the task order. The list that we will present right now, it's not comprehensive, meaning there are additional reporting requirements that are listed on your master contract, but you can also contact us if you want a comprehensive list that we have put together. It includes deadlines, location of where you need to report, and additional information useful for you to complete these tasks successfully. So now let's talk about the first requirement. The first requirement is your insurance. So you have to submit timely and accurate certificates of insurance and maintain adequate insurance coverage under your OASIS contract and for your task orders. If I have a note here that even if a task order does not specify the minimum requirement, then FAR Part 28.3 will apply as far as the minimum requirement that you must meet. The frequency is that you will have this document available within 3 days upon request, and the location is specified in the third column of this table. This is to be provided via FedConnect and to your OCOs or ordering contracting officer for the applicable task orders. The very next one is the employment reports on veterans. The requirement is to report timely and accurate BEDS 4212 reports on the Department of Labor website. Many of you will be familiar with this reporting because it applies to many other government contracts. and their frequency is to be reported annually, no later than September 30 of each year. The next requirement is the executive compensation and first year subcontract awards report. You must submit timely and accurate reports as far as executive compensation to meet the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act reporting requirements. The requirement is to submit it by the end of the month following an award of $30,000 or more to a first-tier subcontractor. And please note that you must update this report in case that the $30,000 amount changes as far as an increase. The next reporting is government facility clearance level. The contractor shall maintain and exceed your level and submit updates. This is if applicable. So meaning if you have an update, you are to report it within 15 calendar days of any change in status. And this is submitted to your OASIS contracting officer via OSP. The OSP stands for OASIS Submission Portal. Just a note that the current system utilized is Symphony, but GSA is looking to transition this system, so it might change in the future. The last reporting requirement is the Federal Hourly Performance and Integrity Information System. The requirement is to submit timely and accurate information and maintain sufficient financial resources and meet the responsibility standards and qualifications. The frequency is semi-annually, starting 6 months from the anniversary date of your master contract's notice to proceed. So you will see what pertaining to your notice to proceed, that's where you will start counting those 6 months. And the website to report this is through sem.gov. Next slide, please, Kathy. Now we have a few more. The next one is the Capability Maturity Model Integration, or CMMI level. This is to be maintained, or if there are any changes or you exceed your CMMI maturity level, you are to submit the updates, of course, if applicable. The requirement is very similar to your NSF ANSI 391.1 certification. The requirement is to maintain them, and if you exceed them or have any updates, that you report them, and you will be essentially reporting it via the OSP, for now Symphony as well. Moving on to the next requirement, we have the forward pricing rate agreements, recommendations, provisional billing rates, or any other approved billing rates. These are to be maintained and submit updates. So these billing rates must be maintained. And if there are any updates, you are to report them again within 50 calendar days of any material changes to the system or any other notification of a change in status. The next requirement is the service contract reporting. We are to report on services performed under this contract during the preceding government fiscal year. And just a note that is very particular to OASIS Plus, we know that normally the SCR reporting is due on October 31st of every year, but this contract has a specific requirement of October 15th. So please make a note there that for this specific contract, we have 15 days less to submit this report. And the last one on this slide is the Cybersecurity and Supply Chain Risk Management, or CSCRM plan. The government agencies are now expecting companies to have documented cybersecurity and SCRM plans because this is becoming a top priority on the federal government contracts to maintain security in systems and through cybersecurity. Now, companies are required to submit your capabilities as far as cybersecurity and assessment on your SCRM plan to describe your actions taken to identify, manage, and mitigate supply chain and cybersecurity risk. The frequency is annually, beginning 90 days after the OASIS Plus notice to proceed. And again, this is to be submitted via the OSP Symphony for now, but it may change in the future. Thank you, Kathy. Please, next slide. Now, as far as the last two reporting requirements, we have the DFARS business systems and the ISO certifications. These are not required for contractors, but if you do have them, please update them via the OSP, and you have essentially the same reporting frequency. So within 15 calendar days of any changes to the system, or after any notification of changing status. Thank you, Kathy. Now, we wanted to provide a table that essentially provides information as far as what is applicable to you as a small business or as a large business, and we have highlighted the differences in blue. So as we can see, most of the requirements are applicable to both the small and large businesses, but a few, like the pricing rate agreements, recommendations, and billing rates, or the DFARS business systems, are only applicable to large versus small business. Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, thank you, Bree. We're going to break right here for our very first poll of the day. This one says, my experience with Service Contract Act compliance and reporting is, first choice is great. We've got a strong HR team that keeps us going. Fair, we believe we have a handle on it, but thought of an audit gives us a little anxiety. And lastly, we need help. This is our first large contract vehicle where Service Contract Act could apply, and we're not quite sure how to get that in the box. And thank you for everyone responding. It looks like about a toss-up between great and fair. So we're really glad to hear that most everyone in the audience understands this regulation and knows how to comply with it. For those of you that need more help or would like a sounding board, you can reach out to us at Boost. We'd be happy to help you with that. Thank you for participating. I'm going to end this one and back over to you, Bree.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you everyone for responding to our poll. Now let's talk about transactional data reporting. We will be focused on the remainder of the presentation on this aspect of compliance, because this is where essentially you will be more frequently providing these reports to the government. Now, what is transactional data reporting? It is a collection of transactional data that enables GSA stakeholders to compare transactional data across GSA contracts, which will result in market-driven reductions as far as price, saving money for customer agencies, and which ultimately benefits the tax payer. Now, this is an initiative that is becoming very popular on GSA contracts. For the ones that have GSA mass or multiple award schedule contracts, this is now in expansion. So we know that some SINs have already implemented and it's been expanded even more. And now the OASIS Plus, since this is a very robust contract, is adopting this transactional data reporting requirement. The main thing on this TDR requirement is that it will now enable agencies to compare your rates against other contracts, and that will help essentially the government to negotiate better rates for them. So it's important to pay attention to these because it will be expanding to even more contracts. Thank you, Kathy. Now let's review the reporting frequency for TDR. It will depend based on the requirement, but all new task orders awarded against your contract are to be reported within 30 days after task order award. The report of task order modification data is to be submitted within 30 calendar days from the last calendar day of the month. And we are to report monthly invoices, including clean or contract line item and labor category information within 30 calendar days from the last calendar day of the month. This is now a new requirement under the OASIS Plus contract, because before the requirement was quarterly and now it is monthly. Also, I want to highlight something very important, that even though you may not have invoices to report for the month, you are still required to report a zero sales data pertaining to the task order which received no invoice during the month. So it's very important to take this into consideration, because even if you think, well, I don't have any invoices to report for these months, I'm good, you are still required to report those invoices in the SRP system, those non-existing invoices. So, and this is very important because we don't want Uncle Sam knocking on your door for non-compliance or requiring CAF fee that hasn't been collected. And now at the end, we have our contract access fee remittance, and we will be collecting this fee from your customers and paying back the fee to the government on a quarterly basis. Thank you, Kathy. Now let's talk about, what is this fee? What is the contract access fee? Well, this fee covers GSA costs for managing the OASIS Plus contract. It provides support to the systems that enable the administration of the contract, and support also to ordering agencies. Now the CAF is only 0.15% and is charged against all orders and applied to the total amount billed on each invoice. The total invoice amount is inclusive of labor, materials, ODCs, including travel, ancillary support, and profit. So the rule of thumb is, if it's revenue, please count it, because we must pay fee on the revenue. And I have included a standard formula here, which is the total CAF equals the total invoice amount multiplied by your CAF rate percentage. And that will give you the CAF amount that must be returned to GSA. Thank you, Kathy. So now let's talk about the differences from OASIS in comparison to OASIS Plus. The main difference is that now the CAF rate is, as you mentioned before, only 0.15 compared to 0.75 under the previous OASIS contract. This is very important because for the ones that already have a OASIS contract, you may know that some agencies in the previously negotiated lower CAF rates, and they were issued memos of understanding for us to keep track of those memos of understanding and then reporting less CAF to GSA, but this will no longer be applicable. So no memos of understanding will no longer be allowed during the performance of any task order under the OASIS Plus contract. So something to pay attention to. This will eliminate a lot of administrative burden on the government side and on industry as well. Thank you, Kathy. So now let's talk about the CAF process. As we mentioned, the CAF should be included in every task order and also under every funded modification under a separate task order contract line item or CLIN. The fee is paid by ordering agency. And we can see here, I've included a screenshot of a sample invoice for you to see how the CLIN of CAF must be separate from your other CLINs in your invoice. The fee is remitted by the contractor to GSA on a quarterly basis within 30 days after the end of each calendar quarter, okay? And as we can see here, the total amount of the invoice will essentially be what must align with your entries and SRP. So at the SRP, we will discuss it in the next slide, but this is essentially the sales reporting portal. And once you enter your data, the best practice is that it aligns with the invoices that you issue to your customers. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Bree. And I'm going to interrupt you here for our second poll. This one is about familiarity with CAF reporting. How familiar are you with the CAF reporting under other government-wide acquisitions and paying CAFs or IFFs in the FAS sales reporting portal? Oh, and these results are a little bit different. As I see the tally coming in, it looks like a toss-up between almost half of you are very familiar, nearly half of you are not familiar at all, and then we have a small percentage that are a little bit somewhat familiar. So just a mixed bag on that one. I can say I have done CAF reporting in CPRM, and the first time or two I did it, I struggled. Bree, how about you?
Same here. That system is definitely not intuitive, not user-friendly. It can be a challenge, definitely.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you everyone for responding to our poll. Now, speaking of the system that we will be utilizing, this system, as I mentioned before, is called the SRP, Sales Reporting Portal. It's essentially an online platform for federal contractors to report your sales and data-related information. This portal allows contractors to submit your sales data and ensure compliance with GSA reporting requirements. The key features, as we mentioned before, is transactional data capabilities. As Kathy and I mentioned, this new system is now safe, secure, and user-friendly. It's definitely different than the previous legacy system, which essentially had like obsolete fields or non-functioning fields. So the SRP is definitely an improvement for us as industry, and on the government side is definitely a website that will provide more functionality to our reporting process. Thank you, Kathy. Now let's talk about the system. How do we get access and how do we report our deliverables? The very first step will be, of course, gaining access to the platform. In discussion with a couple of contracting officers on the OASIS Plus contract, I have received information that we will be receiving access by the end of this month or early December. So I know we're all anxious to get into the platform and see how it looks like. However, some contractors already have access. If you have other contracts, like for instance, a Polaris contract or a GSA mass contract, you already have access to the platform. However, the modules for the OASIS Plus contract fields are not yet available to be accessed yet. But let's mention that if you have never registered to have a multi-factor authentication account or FastID, that will be your first step. So the first step will be to essentially getting registered, and you will see a blue option that says register. Once you are there, you will be entering your name, your last name, and your email address. And what will happen is that the system will validate those entries against what was originally submitted on your contract. And if you are successfully validating that information, you will receive the success screen, as we can see in the third screenshot, and you will be able to gain access to the platform. If you already have access to the platform, you do not have to create another account. You can just use the one that you already have. Thank you, Kathy. Now, what we will see when we log in into the platform, we will see the main menu. We will see on the left side, we will see the menu where you will be essentially performing all of your reporting actions. And on the right side, you will see your current reporting dates, when is your due date for reporting, when is the end of the quarter. You will be able to see your contract number, the frequency, your outstanding balance, and just general information as far as your reporting. I also have included, for the ones that want to dive into the technical side of this system, a link to the technical user guide, because all of the screenshots provided in this presentation are obtained from that guide, and you can find more information there as well. Thank you, Kathy. Now let's talk about how to navigate the system. The very first option will be your reporting on your left side. In the reporting, you will be able to, of course, provide your sales data information, upload files as far as your data, also do closeout sales data and adjust the data as well. The second screenshot is the payments, so you will be able to click and make payments and remit your CAF or view historical data information. The third screenshot is your fast sales reporting. In here, you will be able to manage your task order information and your uploads. You will be able to see your contract details, your task orders, your modifications that you entered in the system, and more information. And the last one I have included because it helps us be more efficient with our time when we want to find, let's say, a task order or contract. You can just click on the search button and filter easily through your data. Thank you, Kathy. Now let's get to how do we add our first task order under this system. The first thing that we will do will be to go into the left side, and we will go into the menu, add new task order. Then we will click on the drop down of our contract number. Again, remember, it can be a drop down for you if you have, let's say, any other contracts that are managed through the SRP platform. And then the third step in this slide will be to enter your task order number. Thank you, Kathy. Now let's talk about the next steps in your task order entry. And we will see how the delegation of procurement authority that Nick and Megan discussed in our previous webinars, how is really applied in the system and validated. Well, after you complete the 3 steps in the previous slide, you will verify that all mandatory fields are completed. And of course, it is a best practice to fill in the non-mandatory fields as well. The very next step will be to enter the name of your OCO or ordering contracting officer. Now there are 2 options that can happen. The very first one is if your OCO is in the list, you're lucky. Essentially, it means that your OCO has a delegation of procurement authority, and then you will select it and be able to proceed. Now, what happens if your OCO is not in the list? Then you will be providing your OCO's name and email. Then upon saving the task order, you will see a warning that will indicate that your OCO is not in the list of approved DPAs. And then you will be receiving a notification as far as task order awarded be without contract delegation. And once the task order OCO is granted the DPA, the data will be sent to SRP. So this is why I mentioned before, it is very, very important that we enter those task orders as soon as we receive them, because if we do not have the delegation of procurement authority on the OCO side, we will not be able to report any invoices against that task order. So even though you will still be able to essentially invoice your customer and collect that CAF fee, you will not be able to report those invoices and therefore you will not be able to remit the CAF back to GSA, and you will not be in compliance. So we don't want that to happen, of course, so that's why it's very important that we enter those task orders on time. Thank you, Kathy. Now, the very next step will be to just validate that the period of performance is correct. And once your validations are completed, you will be uploading a copy of your task order. And once that is completed, that will be your last step. You just click submit and transmit the data. And if that happens successfully, you will receive that little window screenshot that I provided in this slide, which says that you will have successfully submitted your data. Thank you, Kathy. Now, how to add a modification. From here, we will go over doing a general overview or a high-level overview of the entries, because the system, as I mentioned before, is very intuitive and user-friendly. And essentially, once you select the correct form, the system will allow you to identify the next steps in the process. But essentially, to add a modification, we will be going to Program Management, then Add New Modification, select your contract from the drop-down list, and your task order as well. Then you will verify that the requirements on the left side of your screen are all accurate. And then you will be entering the information pertaining to your modification on the right side of the screen. So you will be entering your modification type and number, if there were the period of performance end or start dates and related information. And once that is entered, you will be clicking submit, and you will be in completion of this task. Thank you, Kathy. Now, how to report zero sales data for task orders. Again, this is an important step because you, during your first reporting, most likely you will not have data to report, but remember, you will be reporting zero sales data for your task orders by following the instructions in the form. You will be clicking reporting, then form entry. Then you will be entering a contract number from the drop-down list, then a unique invoice number, and select pay date. As you will not, since you will not have an invoice to report, you can just enter a dummy invoice and a date that is within the month that you will be reporting. And then you will be selecting the task order from the drop-down list. And once you click on add invoice, you will be adding the new line. And you will see that it also reflects, your invoice reflects zero sales per this order and zero CAF amount. And once that is completed, you will just click submit. Also, just a note that you can also be saving your data instead of submitting, but the requirement is that you submit it. You can save your data if you want to revisit something in the future before the end of the quarter. But once you are ready, you will now be able to submit it as well. Thank you, Kathy. Now, how to report sales data once you have those invoices. You will be going to the same section as far as reporting, form entry, contract number. You will be entering your unique invoice number and select the pay date. You will then click add invoice, which these are essentially the same steps as before in the previous slide. And then you will enter your line IDs, and you will be entering your claim from the drop-down list. As we can see here, we have our predetermined labor categories, but we will also be entering the description of the deliverable in the very next column. Once everything is submitted and entered correctly, we will then click submit, and we will be good to go to move on to our next report. Thank you, Kathy. Now, how to report subcontracting information. Just to give you a little bit of context on this report, this section indicates the amount of work subcontracted under each task order. This information will be used to ensure that the amount of work subcontractor does not exceed 50% of the total amount of work completed pursuant to Part 52.219-14, which is limitations on subcontracting. You must report monthly, aligned with your TDR reporting schedule. The steps that you will be taking to submit this report is essentially going to program management, review task order mods, then you will scroll down to subcontracting reporting section, and you will select your period. And that is, we are reviewing the last screenshot on this slide. We will, once we enter the reporting period, you will enter your UEI number of your subcontractor, your vendor name. You will select yes or no on the drop down for similarly situated entity. And then you will enter your total amount subcontracted field and click submit. Thank you, Kathy. Now, what about the CAF payment process? So once that all your sales data is entered in the system, you are now required to pay back the CAF. Remember that we said that this has to be submitted at the end of the quarter, the following 30 calendar days after the end of the reportable quarter. And in order for you to do this, you will be going to navigating to the payment section, and then we will be selecting make payments. Once you are in that screen, you will be selecting your contract from the drop-down list. You will select your task order, and you will choose you will be essentially selecting SRP CAF or select CAF clean or select other button. I recommend that you select CAF clean, because that will essentially pull the data from the CAF claims that you have previously reported in your invoices. You will then select the Pay Now button, and that will send you to the Pay.gov platform, which is essentially the portal for payments. Once you follow the prompts in Pay.gov, you will be able to enter your bank information. There's also other methods of payment that are allowed, like credit cards. And once you complete entering your information, you will be clicking on Submit. And the SRP system will be sending you a confirmation via email that essentially states the CAF amount paid, your contract number, and related information. Also, your SRP system will reflect a transaction status of successfully received, and that means that the system successfully captured your payment. It's now reflected in SRP. Thank you, Kathy. Now let's talk about some best practices and recommendations for your contract management. We must ensure, as we mentioned before, that all CAF payments and your invoice reporting are submitted on time. Please don't let things fester for the end of the quarter or the end of the month. As soon as you receive your information, please report it in the system. And we are to include CAF in every proposal and ensure it has a separate clean item. And we have to pay CAF on every dollar of revenue received by your company. And of course, remember, if they are transitioning personnel, it is a best practice also to have multiple point of contacts to be able to access the system and report data. One thing that I want to note here is that the implications of non-compliance, right? What could happen if you don't report your data, or if you are delinquent in the deliverables? Well, failure to meet them may result in activation of a dormant status and or result in a contractor being off-ramped. So we definitely do not want to happen if we can submit this successfully in the system. Again, if you need assistance, we are here to help you and to support you during this process to ensure that you are successful in meeting these requirements. Thank you, Kathy. And the key takeaways that we learned from this presentation is that now the new CAF is now no longer 0.75, is now 0.15. And GSA will no longer negotiate a lower CAF rate, so memos of understanding are now obsolete, and that 0.15% will be permanent through all government agencies. Also, there's a new system which is called the SRP, for transactional data reporting, which replaces CPRM or the contract reporting module under the legacy contract. Now the reporting will occur monthly versus quarterly under the legacy contract. And if you do not have any invoice to report under a task order, you will still be required to submit a zero sales report. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Bree. And now it's time for our last poll of the day. It's more about CAF. If you've done CAF reporting and payments before, what was your experience? I've reported them in CPRM and I found it straightforward. I've done it in CPRM and found the process cumbersome and confusing. That would be my vote. I have had contracts without a CAF CLIN, and the process to correct that and align the money in the portal was very difficult. I can also raise my hand on that one. And I have never done CAF reporting under a GWAC vehicle. And the results are coming in. It looks like the majority have never done CAF reporting under a GWAC vehicle. Second, folks are in my camp where they've done it in CPRM, but they found it cumbersome and confusing. Those are my people. And then third, they reported in CPRM and found it straightforward. Congratulations to that group. And then lastly, just a few, 5% have had CAFs with no dedicated CLIN and had to struggle through correcting that, which is nothing short of a nightmare. So thank you all for responding to this poll. And I think we are ready for questions and answers. Let's see, Bree, if I have a new OASIS Plus contract, but I don't have a task order award just yet, do I still have to submit a $0 report for the month?
And the answer is no. The $0 reports are tied to your task orders, and those need to be submitted to a specific task order. So if you do not have any task orders awarded, you essentially will not be able to report zero sales data under that task order.
Okay, got it. I understand. And can you confirm, I think you said this, but the reporting requirement for TDR, it's monthly for OASIS Plus, where for the legacy OASIS, it was quarterly. Is that correct?
That is correct. We need to pay attention to that because now we will be required to report monthly in the SRP platform.
Understood. Okay, and the CAF, that is only that's money that's passing through the contractor's hands, right? They charge the government and then the contractor just pays the government that money back. Did I say that correctly?
That is correct. We're not required to pay CAF out of our own pocket. All modifications, the task orders and the modifications are to include a CAF because the government is essentially paying these CAF. The ordering agency are paying the CAF to us, and we are required to collect it and to pay it back to GSA during our monthly reporting. And monthly reporting will include the CAF collected, but we are to remit the CAF or pay the CAF quarterly per the requirements.
Got it. So Bree, do you know if entries for a new task order award or a new task order mod, do they automatically feed into CPRM so you can choose them, or do you have to hand key those in one at a time?
You need to enter your modifications in the system and also upload a copy of your modification document. So we need to be diligent as soon as we receive a modification to ensure that we accurately report it in the system, in the SRP system.
Okay, so we have to hand key that data, feed it back to the government, and then upload a copy of our task order or our modification. Do we,
Correct.
yes, do we have to upload our invoices as well when we do TDR?
When we do TDR, the invoices are usually not required, but it can be a best practice to include them because even though we may have them we can keep them in our internal records, all data from those invoices will be entered in SRP per clean. So essentially, the SRP will have all of our invoice data already entered in the system.
Okay. And do subcontractors, if I'm a sub to a prime on an OASIS Plus contract, would I have to register in the portal as a subcontractor, or is that only for the primes?
In the SRP portal,
Yes.
this is only for the primes.
Okay. And when we are registering in SRP, when the systems validate against the OASIS Plus contract, it only validates the PM and the contract POC. Do you know how to register a different person so that they can do the reporting for sales and the CAF?
So the changes in persons must be submitted as a request via Fed Connect. And essentially, Fed Connect help us send those requests to update our personnel. Fed Connect essentially will transmit that information to our OASIS Plus Master Contracting Officer, and then we will be able to do the change via that system.
Okay. Let's see. With transactional data moving to SRP, do we need to add our new OASIS Plus vehicles to CPRM, or can we just forget about CPRM for OASIS Plus?
So on OASIS Plus, you will be required to manage all of your transactional data and all of your data through SRP. So it is not necessary, it is not needed for you to use both systems where you can only use SRP to manage your task order and data information.
Okay, and Bree, I want to go back to that separate CAF CLIN for a minute. If I win a task order and when I get it, it doesn't have a separate CAF CLIN, how do I resolve this? Do I refuse to sign it? Is there something I can do in the RFP phase? What is your recommendation?
Yes, thank you. That's a very good question, Kathy. The best practice is to always include it in your proposal. So since you are pulling together all those numbers and the rates during your proposal, you need to also include the CAF rate as a separate line item in your proposal. So that way, when that task order is awarded, the CAF is also transferred to your task order award. Now, what happens if you receive a task order and the CAF clean is not there? I strongly encourage you to go back to your OCO and request that they include it, because once you sign it and once if nobody cuts this issue, then we will have to issue a modification on that task order just to include the CAF as a separate line item. So it's better to prepare in advance and include it since at the beginning of the proposal phase.
Yes, I agree with that. I also think that as we could ask a bidder question as well, right? If the proposal comes out and we see the CLIN structure and there's no CAF CLIN, I think asking a question very early on might be able to head it off right away, don't you think?
Yes, I completely agree.
Great, great. Here's another question. Do you know if the new OASIS Plus portal will allow me to do all my reporting, or will I still have to report Service Contract Act and SAM, first tier subcontracts and executive comp and FSRS? Is OASIS Plus going to replace those other portals, or will I still have to report in both?
That is a very good question. And the answer is that unfortunately, the SRP system is not a one-stop shop for all of our reporting. So we will still have to be reporting under our separate systems. And if you have a question as far as where to report it, the first slides of this presentation include systems like SAM.gov, FSRS to continue to report your data as usual. And essentially the SRP system is used for transactional data. So we will focus more on your invoices, your task orders, modifications, and your subcontracting data as pertains to your limitations of subcontracting. So only that data is the one that will be submitted through the SRP system.
Okay. So it sounds like there will be some duplicate reporting requirements, and that's just the price we pay for having an OASIS Plus contract. Yes?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for everyone who joined us for the polls, joined us today, and um, gave us the question. Oh, we have one late breaking question. Bree, if we haven't won any task orders, do we still need to support the monthly data? And I think you answered that one a little earlier. The answer is no. If you don't have a task order, you don't have to do any reporting because there's no money on your master contract. Once there's a task order and you go live and you start performing work, then you have to report, even if you haven't started or you haven't invoiced your customer yet. Did I get that right, Bree?
100%. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Bree, for the information you shared with us today. For our listeners, if you have additional questions and you didn't have time to get it into the portal, we will answer you by email at the address you gave us when you registered. Thank you all for coming. We look forward to seeing you at tomorrow's OASIS Plus webinar, the fourth and last in our series. It's on lateral springboarding, on-ramping, and recertification. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.